welcome to the committee, Raquel, for being a sub. It's great to have you here.
Hey,
so you have six minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to question the witnesses. I looked over this report in detail and had a number of questions, and I just want to reiterate what was the crux of the report and many of the remarks from the Auditor General. So my understanding of the report, the goal was to determine whether the Canada Border Service Agency, in coordination with the Department of Immigration and the Immigration and Refugee Board, removed individuals ordered to leave Canada as soon as possible to protect the integrity of the immigration system and maintain public safety. And further, the AG had found that failed asylum claimants make up the largest share of those ordered to leave. And now I just want to reiterate some of the highlights from the AG's remarks in English, and she gave them in French. We found that the agency, she said, we found that the agency's approach to managing removal cases had not resulted in the timely removal of inadmissible foreign nationals. And further, in April 2019, about 50,000 had accumulated and many had not been enforceable for years. And that in particular I found very concerning. The agency had not known the whereabouts of about 2/3 of the individuals ordered to leave. And she found two main issues with this. First, the agency's efforts were hindered by poor data quality, which meant that the agency did not have the information it needed to track enforceable removal orders. So they didn't even have the technology to sort of know and to find where these individuals were. And there were 50,000 of them at the time. And she also mentioned that there was a poor flow of information between Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada and the agency. And the second one I found in particular quite concerning. So there was poor case management led to significant periods of inactivity for thousands of cases. The agency did not have an effective system that pushed it to act on removal cases, even high priority cases that were time sensitive. And she said that the agency had not acted on about 1,500 cases for about 2 years. And more of these cases had on average still been in the working inventory for 4 years and in the wanted inventory of arrest warrants for a decade. And so what I think the public will be particularly concerned about is the agency's inability to effectively prioritize removal cases and concerning for the small number of criminal cases that may pose a risk to public safety. Criminal cases had been in the agency's working inventory for an average of 5 years. Now, in her report, she mentions that criminal cases, particularly the serious ones, were those convicted of crimes punishable for a maximum sentence of 10 years or more, and in the opinion of the border officer, would pose a threat to the public or individuals. And so I did find that concerning, and she specified there were 150 cases involving serious criminals that had not been worked on. So what I was hearing in her remarks and in her report were that there were 150 known criminals that they weren't sure where they were and they weren't working on finding them. And further, there were 2,800 other criminal cases as well that we didn't know where they were and we weren't working on them. So now we know that this report is from data from a year and a half ago, April 2019. So what I'm hoping today is to hear an update with progress for the Canadian people that are concerned about criminals who essentially have illegally entered our country and we're not able to find them and we're not working on finding them, at least at the time of this report. So for Mr. Osowski, I hope that I'm pronouncing your name correctly, please correct me if I'm not, how many of the 2,800 criminals that were identified for removal have now been removed in the past year and a half, and how many warrants for arrest of failed asylum claims of individuals who are criminals exist in Canada right now?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to report that one of the silver linings of the COVID experience is I've been able to reallocate some resources to a warrant review process. We're about 80% done that review process right now, and I'm happy to report that that number of people in the wanted inventory that the Auditor General identified is now down to 800 people with criminality. I would just like to expand for a second on that, though. I think it's important for the committee to understand that people, when they come to the border, they might have criminality in their past. It might have been serious at some point in time. They might have served a sentence. As I said in my opening remarks, no one leaves our control if we feel that there is any risk to the public. We will go to the IRB, we will detain them, and there's a hearing process where the IRB will review those detentions.
And I just have to continue. I only have a minute and a half left. But my understanding in her report, she said that there were many of these criminal cases were not even no one was looking for them. They were just, I guess, on somebody's desk collecting dust, which I found concerning. But just now in French, for our French colleagues, comment expliquez-vous le fait que le délai de traitement des renvois pour des criminels qui nous sommes en mesure de localiser est de 5 ans en moyenne. Et puis, comment expliquez-vous le fait que les dossiers de 150 cas criminels sérieux ont demeuré inactifs pendant des années, souvent sans officier au dossier?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So it is complicated. You might find someone that we know about that has a criminal past, but we can't get travel documents for them, and that represents about 60% of our challenge in people that we have an enforceable removal order in place, but we simply can't get the travel documents to send them back to where they came from.
Pardon me. So the crux of the problem is you just can't. They don't have a passport, so you can't deport them, so to speak. But I wanted to know as well, just to wrap up, how many have been convicted or charged of crimes while they were in Canada?
Potentially my vice president might have that information, Scott.
Thank you very much for that. It would be probably in the neighborhood of 60% that have been charged in Canada of our total criminal cases.
Okay, and just to be clear, you're not able to find them, but they have been charged?
Yes, charged and or convicted of crimes in Canada. So as part of the process, people who are convicted in Canada of crimes do complete their sentences in Canada. And during the serving of their sentence, their removal orders are stayed. Once their sentence is complete or they're granted parole, they come into CBSA care and custody. We review those cases to determine if they present a risk to the public, and we move forward with the removal order.
Okay. Thank you very much. And now over to...
I just wanted to talk a little bit about the cost to taxpayers that the recent influx over the last couple of years has cost. So we know that from 2017, 2018, and 2019, 169,000 people illegally, or as others have said, the federal government in particular, irregularly crossed the border into Canada, most of which claimed asylum, most of which we found their asylum claims were not valid, and many of which we cannot find now to remove. But my understanding is the agency in 2018-2019 spent $34 million on this removal program. The year following, the federal government over doubled that, adding $36 million for a total of $70 million for a removal program. And further, the Department of Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship committed in 2019 over a 5-year period $1.19 billion to, quote, increase the capacity of Canada's asylum system to process 50,000 asylum claims per year. For the Deputy Minister of Immigration, can you confirm that this $1.15 billion does not include welfare payments like food, lodgings, travel, the others? Hello? Deputy Minister, can you confirm that this $1.1 billion does not include the welfare payments to those asylum seekers, claimants?
You are correct. If
correct.
I may,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I could just take one moment to say congratulations. It's my first opportunity to congratulate you on your appointment.
Thank you very
as
much.
our
I
critic, and we
appreciate
look
that.
forward to that.
I do have a question now that we're talking about the money for the Quebec context, since we know the most of the influx has been into Quebec at Roxham Road. Je sais que le gouvernement du Canada a remboursé la province de Québec pour les coûts assumés en raison des dizaines de milliers de demandeurs d'asile qui sont venus au Québec. Quel était les montants de remboursement de la province de Québec en 2017 et 2018?
Mr. Chair, we are still, I assume we're talking about additional monies that the federal government has provided to the government
correct.
of Quebec, and for lodging and for the increases in lodging related to irregular asylum claimants. So we're still discussing with the government of Quebec for 2019 and 2020. And those discussions are underway and ongoing,
Okay.
and we have not.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Deputy Minister, but my understanding was that it was 250 milliards, or million, pardon me, 250 million. Is that correct for 2017 and 2018?
That's right.
And do you know what the payment was for 2019? Or is
We
that
haven't
what's
made
still
a
being
pay-
worked out?
No, we're still discussing with Quebec.
Understood. Okay, and for likely my last question, I want to talk about the incentive program. So under a section in the Auditor General's report, it said that few people have incentive to voluntarily leave. Essentially, people are not willing to go. We have to sort of arrest them and have them leave. That's my understanding from the report. So the agency's response was that they had said the immigration continuum, is predicated on the expectation that individuals who no longer have status in the country or who have been found inadmissible will abide by our laws and leave Canada voluntarily. The reality is that a significant number of people fail to do so. So in response, the agency has proposed or is implementing a departure incentive program pilot that will implement these initiatives by the fourth quarter of 2020-2021 fiscal year. So what is the budget for this pilot project and how many people will it service?
Thank you for the question. So we were given an initial allotment, Scott. Do you have the exact number to develop the program? So for 2 years, and the next step would be for us to go to Treasury Board and get the right authorities to actually launch the program. So I don't actually have that number handy.
Do you have an
Scott.
estimate? Like, are we talking 10 million, 20 million?
It is in the neighborhood of 10 million over a number of years.
In the neighborhood of 10 million. So we're going to, so just so I'm clear, so this departure incentive program pilot is because when folks are supposed to leave, their claims have been denied, their appeals to those denials have been denied again, and now they're supposed to leave and they're not. We're going to pay them to leave. Is that correct?
It's to incentivize them to leave within the period before it becomes a deportation order. So,
right, before you have to issue a warrant.
We would initially have a departure order. So the process is that they would have a negative decition.
And what would the payment be? Pardon me. What would the average payment be?
I think we're at the end of time.
Can you just answer my last question?
We can pick that up. Ms.